This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. Children are often a reflection of their environment. Those who raise them are the words for God on the lips of children. Those archetypes are there to teach us how to navigate the stormy seas that can be called life. It is difficult or next to impossible to find your way with a broken compass. If our models for human beings are broken, then we learn that broken is normal. Reality is a perspective that is instructed through the eyes of those in charge. Only when we start to see the world can we see the flaws in the lessons. We must rewrite our instincts along with our genetic code. The difference between right and wrong is a razor's edge that may be in the hands of the wrong person. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, you see we got a full house. We welcome Conner Furu, Rich Tuero, and Bobby Crudele to talk about the suffering of self-worth with Conner Furu. So Conner's going to show you his own playbook on how he made it through from a childhood to where he is now. So thank you for coming in. Thank you, everybody, for coming in.
Thanks for having me. I mean, it's very serendipitous how we even are all connected. I mean, that's a story in and of itself.
We're going to talk about that, and I really want to get into that because the dots are connected in a very serendipity is a perfect word. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as podcasters, and we certainly don't trust anybody as retired police officers, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you the car. So Conner, you watch a couple of our episodes. Each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Feeble Joe. Who is someone you look up to and why? Conner, you traveled all this way from the wrong coast. So we're going to start it off with you.
I could easily say my mom, but given all football guys here, I think I'll give a nod to a guy who I'm not here without him, a guy named Reggie Gaither, who's our offensive line coach in high school, very much my father figure, and someone I speak to almost every day in some capacity. He was a parole officer. He's just a leader of men, showed me, what to be when I had every example of what not to be. And wouldn't be anywhere without him.
I think we all need those father figures in our life who are not our fathers. Mm-hmm. That's right. So Richie, returning guest. I can't even remember what episode you were on, but we were on audio and you had to take your shoes off.
Yep, I did have to take my shoes off.
Yes.
First off, thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it, and it's truly awesome to be here. But I'm gonna go cliche, man, because it's the truth. My dad came here 12 years old, came to America 12 years old from Cuba, didn't speak English, no mom and dad. Mom and dad stayed back home because they were only allowing kids. So he came legally during that period.
From Cuba, correct?
From Cuba, yeah. And here I am. I always say it's a miracle I'm here because my dad fought through adversity his whole life. I mean, he left his parents at 12, and he didn't see my grandparents till he was 22 years old.
Wow.
How crazy is that? And he made it. And, we started in Union City, Guttenberg, then Union City, then North Bergen, and then to make it to Lyndhurst, and then where I am and who I am and where I got is a miracle. And that could not have been done without my father and what he's done to get us there.
You will never meet a poor Cuban. All right, so Gus from Cubita Cafe, one of our former sponsors, he's also Cuban, same type of thing.
Sure.
He goes, because Cubans will just make it work. They're hardworking people.
That's it, man, and that's all I know. Just make it work. I got my father to thank for that, so that's the guy I look up to with all my heart.
Now, Bobby, I don't even need to go to you because it's going to be me, so just, we'll go. And you want to go?
No, you can go.
No, who do you look up to, Bob?
I'm going to go right off of what Rich said. My dad, there's probably dozens of people that I look up to. But my father, because my mother and father got divorced when I was 4. And my story, I did not have a good upbringing. And there was a lot of pain and suffering there. But my father did his best to do the best by me. And what he taught me was how to always believe in yourself, how you can always come back from adversity, and how to work hard. And he gave me those staples that it took me a long time, longer than most, to figure it out. But he was the reason why, and he lived that life. He was all about his kids. So he's someone that if I had to pick one person that, set the bar for me and was always there for me, he was always in my corner, he was my biggest fan.
You and I have had private conversations about this, and although you did have a tough upbringing, I think it served you well. I really do. And you look at certain events in your life that were very difficult, and what they do is they battle harden you.
Yeah, we talked about it being battle tested. We always say it in football. If you have some tough games, you're battle tested. You have a weak schedule, right? It's the same thing in life. If you're battle tested in life and you go through adversity or you've seen it, then when the chips are down, you know what? You don't get to that point where you hit rock bottom and you're like, "This isn't worth being here anymore."
You know where. Okay, this is familiar. I know this feeling, and you know what you've prepped yourself for that. So I'm actually a little jealous of all of you because it sounds like you had good parents. I did not. Okay, I had a great grandfather, and I always looked up to him, and I always admire him to this day. But I'm gonna bring it to the present. So I have 3 other people in my life. Okay, aside from my family, my wife and my children, that's a given. But I have 3 people in my life that if I'm calling them at 3 a.m., they're grabbing a shovel and they're assuming they're going to have to bury a body for me.
Like, that's a lot of lime in the back.
Yes. So, and the reason I admire them is because I can't connect with anybody unless I know they got some junk in the past. I have no connection to them. I don't hate them. I don't dislike them. I just can't connect with them. One of them is Bobby Crudele, sitting over here to my right, is a guy I look up to for many different reasons. He's probably got one of the soundest football minds and the sharpest tongues that you'll ever see in your life. He can think on his feet. Just listening to the rants of Crudele and you'll understand what I'm talking about. The second is Mike DePalma. Mike has been through hell and back when he was over in Baghdad. He had to do some awful stuff. And when he came back, he kind of brought some of that with us, but he endured pain and suffering on a scale that most people can't imagine. And the third one is Tom Flynn. Tom Flynn has been kicked in the nuts continuously, hitting both nuts at the same time. And that man is still standing. And he's still moving forward, and he's still cheery, and he'll still give, even though he's got one shirt, he'll give you that shirt off his back. So those 3 men are the first person I call when I need help. They're the last person that I want to see in this world, and I don't know where I would be without them. And it's a tribe, and thankfully I got that tribe.
I got a tickle, man. I'm sorry.
That's okay, man.
He got nervous when you said tribe because he said, "Oh, I hope nobody knows about my Grindr account."
Yeah, no, dude. I'm holding it. I'm fighting it right now. I got tears coming down my face. I don't know. I'm like, really.
He's a very emotional person. You know that, right?
Yeah. Well, listen.
We got to get him to cry.
So Feeble.
Can you get him to cry?
Oh, I'll get him to cry.
It's easy.
I'm already crying.
You get him to cry.
So Feeble Joe, thank you for sending that question, and keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get him on the air. So Conner, I know enough about you. I've done my research on you. But why don't you tell our audience a little? Well, first, before you tell your audience, let's talk about this weird connection between the 4 of us. Let's start there. I had never heard of you, and a friend.
Most people haven't.
A mutant. I'm not. There's a lot of people in the world.
Yeah.
700.
Conner Furu, who the fuck?
700 million in the country.
Yeah.
We had Seth Gale in here. It was oddly enough, Seth Gale was the last episode that Mike and I recorded together. Seth reaches out and says, "Hey, you might want to check out this guy, Conner Furu." And then we get connected and we start talking. So there's our connection. And then right after I connect with you, I get a call from Mr. Tuero over here going, "You got Conner coming in. I got to come in for this. I got to come in for this." How did you guys get connected?
I liked an Instagram post, an awesome post that I saw. I liked so many of his at this point that I'm not sure exactly which one, but I know it was something positive and awesome, and I liked it. We ended up talking in the DMs, as they say, and next thing I know, he's coming out to Lyndhurst to talk to my team, and we hit it off, and I was like, this guy is awesome. But literally, I like 1 million Instagram posts. All the time. I have 1 million saved videos of motivation. What's going to be the next thing? Whether I want to give it to the kids, my players, whatever it is. The fact that just happened and we just started talking, I don't even know how. It was so natural that I can't even describe how it went down. I just like the video. We started talking, and next thing I know, he's in Lyndhurst in the summer talking to my boys, and it was crazy.
And then you tell him you're coming out to New Jersey.
Yeah. So I'm like, wait a minute, how the hell did that happen? Like, is it someone that he met when he was here? Is it? I have no idea. Mike was gone already, so it couldn't have been Mike.
Mhm.
Like, how the hell did we get here? And it just was wild to me. So that's why I called him. I'm like, how did you guys even meet Conner? And then he told me, and then there you go. It's insane.
And then we get to Bobby.
Yeah.
He tells me, you guys are having Conner Furu on. I'm like, I don't know who's Conner Furu.
Yeah.
And then
That's
and
exactly
then,
what he said. He's like, I don't know.
But here's the thing is I trust him. When you're true friends with someone, I trust him. So if he tells me, hey, that's purple, and I'm like, it kind of looks green. Okay, it's purple, Rich.
Right,
It's
let's
purple.
go.
You know? So when he told me about you, I immediately looked you up. And then I said, wow, I'd like to follow suit with him because anything that he does is super positive. So I said, I'd like to get him to come talk to my guys after I checked you out. And I reached out to you and we had a nice conversation. And then we talked on the phone afterwards. But I had called him and I said, actually, I didn't call him. He called me and said, hey, listen, I'm having this guy, Conner Furu, and Rich, he goes, this crazy connection here. Like, it's kind of 6 ways of separation of Kevin Bacon or whatever that stupid saying is, right? So I was excited after that. I was like, oh, good. And anything that I can do with him, I get excited about.
That's awesome.
And you too, pal.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. So this weird circle, you're always put in the spot where you need to be, right? So there's no coincidence. Police officers don't believe in coincidence, and this is no coincidence that 4 of us are sitting around here.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So Conner, I want you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Where'd you come from?
So I flew in from Austin, Texas, early this morning, but originally from Olympia, Washington, about an hour south of Seattle. It's the capital, but apparently people forget about that from 5th grade.
That always gets people when they're doing the capitals.
Yeah, I came from there, grew up in a fairly, on the surface, normal environment, pretty middle class area. We kind of lucked out with my mom being a hustler and had a lot of connections that we hid things pretty well as far as like our means and whatnot. And my mom busted her ass to allow me to play sports and really dive into that side of my life, because after like many other people, I'm not saying woe me, but when my parents got divorced when I was 7, 8 years old, it was tough. I come from a long line of alcoholics and addicts, and really I threw myself into the sport of football because as an 8-year-old kid, you don't have the tools to kind of cope with that yourself. And so, that kind of, catalyst moment of my parents separating, which I do think is the biggest gift my mom ever gave to me, was separating from my father.
So the sports and this is something we all can talk about, because the sports at a young age, it's got very little to do with the athletics.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to do with especially football. So football's its own monster, because there's no other sport that I can think of. I tell people often I played baseball, basketball, and football. I couldn't tell you 5 people I played baseball and basketball with, but I'll tell you everybody I played football with from the time I was 7 until I stopped playing when I was 22. I'll tell you everybody. And I'll see them, and I keep in contact with a lot of them. So football's its own monster, but what it did for you, especially in an unstable household, it gave you stability.
It gave me an outlet to just deal with the frustration and angst that I didn't know what to do with. Because a lot of the time, I couldn't go to my dad with a lot of the things, and I didn't want to go to my mom with the issues I was having with my dad, because she had just left him for the issues that he was now putting us through and things. So I didn't want to put that on her back, even as an 8-year-old kid. And so I learned to just really repress all my emotions and just kind of fall into that masculine kind of machismo. I don't want to talk about shit, sort of thing.
Bury it deep.
Yeah, just bury it deep, and then once a year let a scream or a cry out, and then get back to normal. But
so it's a good question, and I want to pose this question to all of you. Did your coaches notice?
My coaches, I hit it pretty well from what my coaches have told me since. Like, I've been on some podcasts recently, and now that over the last couple of years, I've shared my story, I get reached out to, pretty often from people saying, I had no idea that you were going through that.
Well, Richie, when you see a player, as a coach, we always try to know a little bit about each player.
No doubt.
When you have a player who, hey, listen, give him some grace because his parents are getting divorced. I've had that.
Oh, we've had many situations, and I mean, intense situations. And Lyndhurst is a tight-knit town, so most of the time I know both parents. You know what I'm saying? And it puts me in a tough spot. But at the end of the day, I'm there for the kid through and through. That the way I feel to best address it is just be there for the kid. Play neutral. No sides. Hey, I'm here for you. If you need anything, 'cause, sometimes they don't want to talk about it, or maybe they do. But the tough part about where I'm from is that everyone knows your business. So it's tough on the kid because usually they're the parents that are going through stuff, they have friends of friends, and those are, your buddies that you go to school with. So, but the reality is, it all depends on the head coach, how aware and in tune they are with their kids. I hold myself to a high level with that because my kids, I told you this before, I call my kids, my players are my kids. I have my daughters, but everyone always thinks my kids are my daughters. These kids are everything to me. They're like they're like my sons, and, I would be damned if I didn't know or wasn't aware and able to be there for the kid when they're going through stuff like that. And it affects them, man. It really, truly does. It's hard.
But as long as you can be there, that stable rock for them, they have something then.
No doubt. And thank God they do, because not everyone
has that.
I'm telling you.
How do you deal with your players' personal lives?
I wanted to focus on something, if I could just feed off of that, what he said. See, these two guys and yourself, you were able to get past whatever that adversity was and dive into football. I didn't have that. I had no support network at home, and I couldn't get past my own problems as a young kid. And yeah, I played sports. I played football. I played basketball. I played baseball. But I more became a lost cause because I just couldn't dive into it. Like, football is the best sport to dive into. It can be a major distraction because it teaches us all these life lessons and it builds us up as a person. But I never got to that. I remember Rip Collins, is famous athletic director in North Arlington. And he came to me when I was like in the 8th grade and he said, I can't wait to get you in high school because your potential, I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you and everything. He goes, and you want to play in college? I'll get you because you have it. And I never got it. My parents sent me to Queen of Peace just because I wanted to go to North Arlington. My stepfather and my mother, and I had a terrible rest. So I never got to that point, So my fine tuning now as a coach is I'm looking for that. When I get out there and I get these kids, I coach mostly youth. So 7th and 8th grade. That's what I've been coaching for the last 15 years, 7th and 8th grade, a little sprinkle of high school. And I see the kids right away. Bingo, there he is. That's me. Or that's his, you can just see it. Mm-hmm. And I focus on that. I pay more attention to it. I coach that up. And I make that 2.5 hours that they have at practice worthwhile. Something that they can distract from. Wow, I can't wait to get to practice. And you know what? Maybe that kid turns into something where he doesn't have to be a great athlete. He could just be someone who now football is where I'm at, and I'm going to do this through high school, and I'm going to persevere, so to speak. So that's what I do.
So did you ever have those moments on the field, as in youth football specifically? Did you ever have those moments where, the coach just pulled you aside, you threw a tantrum, you did something?
So I think it's probably best to start out when I began playing football, because my mom would laugh if you were to have told her when I started that I was going to play in Division I football. I had a white jersey, and my mom would tell me to roll on the ground so she could do the laundry because I was like the softest kid. I was backup corner on a 7U football team, which you're not throwing the ball much on in that position, right? And it was when my parents separated that I kind of flipped the switch, and I wanted to be a running back to deal with that. And I think I would get little kind of nudges from coaches like, hey, it's all right. But at the same time, I think I hit it just.
Was it anger?
It was anger. It was a lot of resentment. It was, and truth be told, I don't even know if my 8-year-old or 7-year-old self knew what the emotions were.
No, probably not.
They were just so much confusion.
Obviously, it came out something that pushed you in a direction.
Of course.
So it could be possible, because I've had this experience before where the coach saw something. They knew something was going on. They saw something, but they were able to redirect it. I had this kid, and I talk about him to this day. Is in 3rd grade. I've never touched my kids. I've never laid a hand on my kids. This kid, when I coached him in 3rd grade, I wanted to punch him right in the mouth. I swear to God. And I've told him this, he's in high school now. And by 4th grade, I figured him out. And he was my most valuable asset. If I needed, he was 4 foot nothing, 67 pounds, but he was the meanest SOB on the field.
Is he the kid that shit his pants?
No, that was me. I could put him in any position. I put him at offensive guard one day because I said, you big guys don't want to block? I won't say his name. Go in. And he went in there and he did a fantastic job. And so he's in high school now. He's my oldest son's age. And he's still a troubled kid. But guess what? Every time I see him, he comes over and says, hey, coach, and shakes my hand. To me, that is the greatest compliment I've ever received when somebody calls me coach who I no longer coach. And I just sent you that thing this morning where
It was awesome.
Reggie Miller was sitting down with Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas, two of his coaches. And to this day, he was somewhere and he says, hey, coach. And somebody said, why you call him coach? And he goes, and that's a term of endearment. It's a term of respect. So as a coach, I'm hoping those coaches just were able to take whatever was going on personally with you and redirect it so you have a little bit of peace, a little bit of sanity. The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques, uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SherryAllsup.com.
I think I definitely had that more so in sort of, leading into my teenage years and whatnot. And, I'm extremely grateful. I think the three most important people in my life from a male figure standpoint in the most important time and confusing time of my life were my football coaches, who just happened to be a parole officer, my running back coach who was a cop, and my D coordinator who was a cop.
Why did you you've spoken about the gentleman who's a parole officer. What's his name?
Reggie Gaither.
Reggie Gaither. What was it about him that drew you to him?
So it's funny. He's a massive guy. He was a former Division I lineman. He's a 6'5" black dude from Brooklyn. Just people gravitate towards him. He's just a very respectable person in the community. Everyone looks up to this guy. And it's funny because he was the middle school coach, and we had a rec league and then we had the middle school league. And I couldn't afford to do both leagues. A lot of my friends went back and forth or played, but I just decided to go with the rec league. And so I remember it was first day of freshman year. We're getting our lockers, and I'd never met him before. I'd heard of him from like my other friends and whatnot. And I go to the table, and he was just like, name, what, didn't even look up. And I said, Conner Furu, and he like looks up at the lock. And so you're the one who didn't want to play for me. And then the rest was history from there. I go over to his house all the time, even to this day, whenever I'm home. And like, he really just took me under a week because he was just such a stable figure for me in my life at that time. Family guy, married, two great sons. And, it was just an example of what I wanted to have. And I was just latched on.
You move along in your football career. You said you were the clean white jersey.
Yeah.
And then sometime after that changed and everything. But when did the coaches start recognizing you? Because every coach does this. You have kids who have certain talents. I just spoke about this on Instagram Live. There's nothing as heartbreaking as wasted talent. So at some point, you were seen as somebody with something special.
Yeah.
When do you think that was?
I think it was probably around it would have been the 3rd or 4th grade. After my parents got divorced, I had played another year, didn't really play a lot. But I remember I wrote a letter to my coach. And it said basically, I don't remember it fully, but I want to run the ball. Like, just give me a shot. And so I stayed after practice every day, like ran me through plays and whatnot. And I wasn't exceptional to begin with, but I put in the extra work to do it, and so he gave me a shot. And from that time, being backup corner, having no reason to ever touch the ball or get on the field, we had a league minimum 8 plays we had to be in for like the fee that we played. I was all right, he got 8 plays, check him off, like put him off to the side sort of kid. And from that day on,
Water.
Right. And then after I, wrote that letter, I was a running back till the day I ended my career.
But throughout high school, you developed a certain talent.
Absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
was that when they looked at you and go, hey, that kid's got
The
something.
ability was there.
Yeah.
You just didn't. You needed this to tap into it.
Yeah.
And that happens to a lot of people. It's a fine line between going any other direction. You could have been the guy that just was happy to be there.
Yeah.
And be distracted by watching the other kids play, but that wasn't in your DNA.
I would say it was around probably the sixth grade where I started to realize that I'm pretty good at this thing. And, from there, I had been told since my parents had divorced, I remember vividly multiple times my dad telling me to change my name for whatever his reason was. And, hearing that from a man that you're theoretically supposed to aspire to be, who's also an addict, isn't a great feeling for an 8-year-old.
He told you, wait, stop. He told you to change your name. Why?
For whatever his reasons were, whether it be unhappy with the situation with my mother or, the time I didn't see him all that often, whatever it was.
Influenced by being an addict.
Yeah.
But that's crazy to me. Like my children, my boys, they're me when I'm no longer here. They're a part of me that lives on past my years.
Yeah.
That's what that name it's a pride thing. I teach them it's a pride thing to them.
Yeah.
That's the name. You never changed it, right?
No. That's
But the point is that just because it was your dad's name, you could recreate that name to be what it is now.
Yeah. So
you did justice to that name.
I had the thought after he said that as a 8-9-year-old kid, is that like, I'm going to do more with this name than anyone has yet. Like, and I had that, I've always considered myself, or been told, I shouldn't say I consider myself like an old soul, but like as a young kid, I was like, I'm going to do more with this name than anyone has. And so far, I think I've lived up to that.
So it's funny because if you think about, go back to your 8 or 9-year-old self, and you had the opportunity to change your name. I've been like buck naked or something like that.
I got to be honest with you. This is so tapped into something for me. My mother wanted me to change my name from Crudele to my stepfather's name, and we would sit down and they bashed, like almost browbeat me to the where I was like, okay, because you're talking about a low self-esteem here.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything as a young kid. I was confused. And I talked to my father about it, and I loved my dad. Every Wednesday and every other weekend, he had me, but he wasn't allowed to come near the house. It was like, he was on the FBI most wanted list in that neighborhood. He wasn't getting in. My mother, there was less. And I told him, and he said, absolutely not. You will be proud of your name. I never did anything wrong for you not to have this name. And he talked to me, and I came in and I said, I'm not changing the name. And it caused even a bigger thing. So
you all have talked about your parents as a source of pride. Like Tuero, you have to own that name. You carry on your parents' legacy with that name. All that hard work. If you were to change your name, there are footnotes in history that nobody's going to remember.
Oh, no doubt. But listen, I have 2 daughters, so the name's probably not going to go farther. But at least myself, and my brother, we made that name proud. I think we made my dad pretty proud.
Don't ever let your daughters hyphenate. I've never met.
They won't.
I've never met a hyphenated name on a woman that woman is somebody I'd want to hang around.
My wife said to me, she goes, "How would you feel if I did that to you?" And I said, "You're absolutely right. I would never have my daughter do that. So it's over." You know what I mean? But it's okay. It's what it was meant to be. Like I'm you're gonna go for the kid, for the boy. No, I got 60 sons on my football team, and then I got my 2 girls that I love with all my heart, and there's nothing better.
So you build that name Tuero as a legacy in a different way.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's not about me. There's a lot of things going on. Like, everybody wants to be named. I don't need anything named after me. Like I said, it's so funny you're saying this because we talked about this today. Me and my D coordinator, who I sit next to every day. I said, Joe, I just hope the kids remember me and think of me as a good coach and a good guy. That's all the legacy I need, and I'm good. I don't need anything named after me. As long as they think back, because that means more than anything to me. As long as they think back and say, Coach Tuero, he was the best, I'm good.
One of my junior league football coaches just died. His name's Tom Coyle. And I'm standing there and I see the message. It's on Facebook. And I turn to my son and I say, one of my old football coaches died. Right?
Sure.
So he was a good coach.
Yeah.
He impacted me. And it really was a sad moment.
To me, it's as long as I get that, he was a good guy. I don't need anything else. I don't want anything named after me. I don't need Hall of Fame. I don't need any of it. I just want to.
Thank God for that, because I was going to erect a statue,
Oh,
and it was going to cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
Think about the size of that statue, right?
Wood,
So
you got a lot of wood. A lot. I just can't like it. But I don't. I wouldn't. I really, and I mean that with all my heart. It ain't about me. And I tell the kids that all the time. Like, I want to win so badly for them. I really, really do. It's and everything. Whether it's the All-Star game, that's a meaningless game, or a high school football game. It kills me. Like when we lost our playoff game this year, I was sick because, yeah, I want to win. It's over. But those kids, and I loved my seniors so every year. It's the same story. But I felt so bad. That's it. Those kids aren't going to play ever again together, and it killed me. That broke me more than anything.
Yeah, I did that. My son stepped off the field as an 8th grader. I'm like, you're never going to play on this field as a player ever again.
With that crew, like,
It made me cry.
The high school kids. I remember I played college ball all 4 years. I was a starter for 3 years. It was awesome. We won. It was, high school football memories are paramount. There's nothing like it.
It's so unique that, well, he's one of the most genuine people that I know, and he wears it on his sleeve. There's no doubt about his emotional style, right? My son said to me when he stopped playing college football, he didn't even play college football. He just was supposed to, and it broke my heart. But he said, it'll never equal high school.
No.
It'll never equal the enjoyment I had playing high school football. And I kind of was like, wow, I guess he has a point there,
Did you find, so when you went to high school and you're starting to, move up the ranks, people are noticing you, newspapers are writing about you. And the only reason I know that, and I don't know that for certain, but the only reason I know that is you don't go D1 without having some press.
Sure.
It's just, it doesn't happen.
I wasn't going to Pac-12 school. Like, I was recruited by, FCS type schools and D2 schools. I like to say, probably because of my speed, because I always used to say, if you need 5, I'll get you 7. If you need 10, I'll get you 12. But if you need 20, I'll probably get you 15. Because
good.
I was an in between the tackles type of back. I mean, my junior year, I averaged just under first down a carry. That was, despite the injuries I had before, I had 3, or actually after my junior year would have been 3 season-ending injuries.
In high school.
So 7th grade, I tore a quad. 8th grade, I snapped my left tibia. 9th grade, I snapped my right tibia. Sophomore year, I was mentally injured, and so I'd like to say I played JV, played special teams on varsity, and then junior year, after really not getting much play time on varsity, I beat out 2 all-conference backs and became an all-conference back myself, but then broke my collarbone the game before, playoffs.
That's the problem with football. Football is a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, injuries happen. But here's the cool thing about injuries, right? So a good coach, when you get injured, especially playing at a high level in high school, when you get injured, I guarantee the coach will keep an eye on you. They'll just watch you, see how you react. All right? And I did this because I know that because I did this with my son. He got injured this year, and I just sat there and I watched him because he had never not played. And that told me more about him than how he played. That his drive to get back. Some people, especially tearing a quad, geez.
I think the right word is determination. And that's something that's inside of you. Not a lot of people have that. I know most players that would have had all those injuries would have said, I can't do this anymore.
It was a healthy bit of determination, but also I had my entire self-worth wrapped up in the game of football. Like, I didn't think I had anything unless
That was your identity.
It was my entire identity. That's when I was told to change my name as a kid, I was like, all right, well, this is something I'm good at. And I started getting external validation from, other people in the community, friends, parents I didn't know, things like that, where I was like, all right, I'll latch myself onto this for a while. And then as someone who put all of his identity into that, then you get, stamped with the injury prone tag, which sucks.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I figured with the injuries you had, you were persona non grata for D1 school.
Yes. I used the term before we went on air, radically authentic. And I always have been that way, but I especially was on the football field because after the first couple injuries, people are like, why don't you go out of bounds? I never played with a single person. I'm not saying I'm the best running back, I've ever played with, but no one I've ever played with ran harder than me. And after those first couple injuries, they're like, all right, why don't you go out of bounds? Why don't you, get down or like cushion your fall? And I was like, that's not who I am. Like, I would rather get injured, and maybe it's just me being stupid, but I was like, I'd rather get injured playing this the way I know I can play best.
Can't change your style.
No.
Yeah, and as a coach, you got to know that about the guys, right? Like, there's times where, coach, you just told him. I know, but you know what? I know like Roddy. Roddy's not going to run out of bounds.
No, he's not.
Hey, well, he was my running back this year. I know he's not going to run out of bounds. My quarterback, Sean, he's going to listen to me and run out of bounds. Roddy, with a torn shoulder, is going to just still lower his shoulder and try to run through somebody because he's out of his mind. Like, that's, and you met Roddy.
Yeah.
That's just, you got to know the kid sometimes. So even though, like you're saying, didn't coach tell you to go out of bounds, whatever, don't take the hit. Sometimes you need that. You need that chip on the shoulder. You need a kid like that to get your team riled up and rocking. So
those are the kids that are just they're invaluable to the whole team, because not only them running, it's their heart
100%
that radiates to the other players.
You know what we're really talking about here ultimately is mental toughness, because we're talking about major injuries here. We're not just talking about like, I tore a little thing, but it got better, or my labrum or something like that. This is major injuries coming back, and you have to be extreme. I know you were driven and you have reasons, and this is your life, and it's in you. This is all you knew. But mental toughness is probably the most important thing in an athlete's life. Once you get to that part where, I got talent. Yeah. So does everybody else.
Especially that position, running back.
Yeah.
I mean, coming back and taking a beating every time. Like, hey, all right, you're going to beat me. Tackle me to the ground every time. Okay, let's go.
And to your point of what you said about, I was basically red flagged by schools. After, I'd say my junior year, I was all conference. I broke my collarbone game before the playoffs, but I had enough tape to, send out to schools, get some looks and whatnot. But it was really all relying on my senior year. Like, I needed to stay healthy, do exceptional, and I was going to get Division I offers. Like, that wasn't even a thought that wouldn't happen. Going into my senior year after the broken collarbone, I won some MVPs at some camps. Me and another, we had a transfer guy who was a sophomore at the time, who's probably one of the most athletically gifted kids I'd ever played with. He was a legitimate 4.3 guy as a sophomore in high school, just glided, and would have been a Pac-12, Big Ten level athlete if he didn't have off the field issues. But we arguably had the best backfield in the entire state. I think within 4 or 5 games, we had like 1,600 yards rushing and a bunch of yards between us.
Saquon numbers.
No, I would
Don't hurt my feelings, man. I'm a Giant fan.
Well, I appreciate you. I'm just going to let you know that I am an Eagles fan.
Yeah.
So.
Do all those Jet players at church know that?
Yes, they do, and trust me, they break my balls when they got beat by the Jets last year.
I'm interested in this. Continue with
that. And so it was my 5th game of my senior year. I was having the best game of my entire life. We were just rolling this team. Halftime, I had like 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I was like, you know what? This is the game that I'm gonna get an offer after this game. There's no way that this doesn't happen. And going into the 3rd quarter, had a few good runs. And then we did a lot of 2-back set. We called it Colt. And for whatever reason, whenever we got in the red zone, my coach, Reggie Gaither, he'll bust my balls for saying this, but he always moved me to fullback whenever we got in the red zone to block, because I was the best blocking and I was the best in between the tackles guy, but they got the running back behind me.
Makes sense.
4.3 speed. And I understood it. But he called a play, and I'm having the game of my life. And in the huddle, like I said, fuck that. Like, because he called my play that I usually got, and I was like, and I pulled rank basically on this sophomore running back, and I said, nah, you're going up, you're blocking for me. And that same play was just a zone play to the right. See the hole open up, plant my right foot, feel a pop in my knee, fall forward for 4 yards, and I tear my ACL.
So your ambition brought you down to your knees.
Yeah, it was just a pure selfish decision that took away any opportunity for a scholarship offer. I had like NAIA schools telling me that I couldn't complete. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like my life, I had the emails from University of Montana, other Big Sky schools that were recruiting me saying, we have other people at your position that don't have these injuries. Like, sorry.
Where's the journey take you then? Junior college?
No, so I
before you step to that, you made the cardinal sin of any athlete. You made it about you.
Yep.
Of any team sport. This isn't golf. This isn't tennis. You made it about you. The teams that play the best don't make it about them. They make it about the team.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought I had earned that because I was such a team guy. I incentivized guys in winter workouts. If they came for 3 days at 0 hour during the week, I'd make their highlight films for them to go to schools. Like, I got guys into the weight room. I did all this stuff. And for whatever reason in that game, I was like, you know what? I've earned a little selfishness.
What was your feelings right after that happened? Exactly when you went to the sidelines, not what Reggie said to you, anything. Totally, it was just like,
yeah, they were like, it could be this, could be that. In my heart of hearts, I think I knew that, I couldn't do a few things. Something was up. And also I had gotten into this rhythm of catastrophizing everything, where if I got injured, it wasn't, oh, I pulled a hammy. It was like, oh, this guy's done for 5-6 plus months. Right. And so I kind of convinced myself otherwise for a bit, but I think in my heart of hearts, I knew like, oh, something bad was up. And it was.
Now you're a senior. You just blew your ACL?
Yep.
All right, you blew your ACL. Now your dream of going to play at a D1 school is really hanging in the balance.
Yeah. Really, I just sent my film out to – I had some decent film for those 5 games, but I sent my film out to every FCS D2 school in the entire country. Like, I was just emailing like crazy, and I got a couple messages back, and one of them being from Drake University. And – listen, I was getting recruited by a handful of the top, D3 schools, Mount Union, a few guys out west as well, and, some pretty prominent guys there, and then a couple of D2s and whatnot. And then Drake came along. Drake's in the Pioneer Football League, same as Marist, and they're non-athletic scholarship.
No scholarship, yeah.
And so despite, we would go play scholarship schools, we played Iowa State my sophomore year and stuff, I was like, if I'm paying for school regardless, I might as well, go somewhere with better facilities, better trainers, better stuff.
You get to travel in that Pioneer League all over the place. It's a pretty cool thing.
It is crazy, yeah. Going to San Diego, North Carolina, New York. I mean, we played the first ever Division I football game in China, which I got to go to, which is a whole other story. But yeah, everything along with it, it just seemed like the best opportunity for me in the long run. So, I made a promise to my family after I tore my ACL that they were going to see me play again. And, that was my route to do it.
It's crazy because, it's one of the things I admire so much about Saquon. So I don't know if you've ever seen that clip of Saquon sitting on the bench and, hey, look, you can go break the yardage. He goes, now let the young guys eat. And that's the selfless thing. I mean, he's top level superstar. He's having the best year of his career, and he's making it about the team.
But at the same point, and this I'm gonna go to the other side, is he's not trying to get somewhere. He's already there. He's in that position. He was in a position where I need to score. I need to have 400 yards tonight because I got to play D1. His goal was, his goal took over his mind. And he became not a team player for one play.
Yep.
And obviously he learned a valuable lesson, but that's where that was at.
I didn't grow up with money. So it's not like, oh, it'll be fine if I don't get a score.
But it's a great analogy about Saquon, how he's selfless, but he's on a level where, does it really matter if I break the record? No, I'm the best back in the NFL right now.
I'll tell you what, I was pissed that he didn't go break the record. I was actually
pissed. It's a smart move.
It is a smart move.
They're in the Super Bowl.
So now you're in a realm that is something. Now you're going to find out how much you really love football.
Yeah.
Because you're going to come back from a really debilitating injury that not too many players come back from.
Yeah.
So that question, that internal doubt is going to be in your mind where you're going to say, how much do I really love football?
There's a lot of guys, and even at the Division I level, there's guys who want to play college football, and there's guys who want to say they play college football.
See,
do you want to appear to be a cop, or do you want to be a cop?
Yeah.
See, I put myself my freshman and sophomore year in college, I wanted to play football. By junior year, it became a job, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I did it because that's just what I've always done until finally, by the grace of God, I was actually, this is weird to say, I ripped my groin muscle. I ripped it. And I said, I'm done. Football is not part of my life anymore. I wish I had your determination at that time to move forward, because I think if I put enough work in it, I could have done more. I'm not saying I would have been pro. That's not what I'm saying. But I could have done more. My potential was not met.
Well, let me tell you why, and this is the driving factor why I kept going, is that when I promised my family, it was my coach and then my mom, my family, that they would see me play again. That was the biggest promise I'd ever made in my life to that point. And I knew in my heart of hearts that if I didn't give everything to what I claimed was the biggest promise in my life, that's going to affect my ability to keep promises to my future children, my future wife, my friends, my family, all that stuff.
It's a lot of clarity for a 17-year-old kid.
But I mean, I had to grow up quick, as many kids do. And I mean, you guys probably all understand. It was such a thing for me where I wanted to be the opposite of what I had, that I looked for every route to do so. So I grabbed onto any coach that, had a good sign of, positive masculinity, like a masculine figure, or someone who just showed good attributes. I'd, want to spend as much time with them as possible, because I didn't really have that. And so when I made that promise, I knew, I was like, didn't put any contingencies that I would fulfill that promise if it was, by this pre-constructed roadmap I had in my head. So, when I get onto campus, my freshman year, a year after tearing my ACL, going through all my rehab and everything, finally get cleared to play, get one practice in, non-padded, nothing too big. And then we get into a thud period, and I'm rusty as hell. I'm not a good football player at this point.
Well, you're stepping up in levels. High school is one thing.
Yeah.
And I tell my son this, when you go to college, it's a completely different level. It's almost like a different game.
Yeah, it's funny, and this is a little side story, but in high school we had a zone play that was called 272, and then we had another play in college that was 272, but it was a totally different play. But this was like my second practice back, and they called like this or that number, and I was like, okay, I know this, and I ran the play. It was a complete opposite play, and my coach ripped into me like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and I was just like, I can't explain that. My bad. Like, and internally I knew. But then later that practice, as much as I'm messing up, I'm having a great time. Like, I'm back looking through the crossbars of a face mask again. It's great. And then we run a zone play to the left, almost just opposite of one I had run a year before. And I do a jump cut, and I feel the same pop in my knee. And so now it's I was like, there's no way. There's no. Yeah. And so I run off the sideline, and both times I tore my ACL, I ran off the field. Like, jumped off the field. Like, something's not right. I hated not being able to get up on my own.
I can understand that.
And find out I re-tear the ACL, have meniscus damage done. Turns out the surgery was botched in the first place. We had a Seahawks team doc go in and do it the second time.
Dr. Hurley?
No, it was a different guy.
Dr. Hurley, who was out of Morristown, was the Seahawks orthopedic, and he did my knee.
I'm sure he knows the guy who did it, a guy named Michael McAdams out in Seattle. But I woke up from surgery, and he goes, hey, everything went well. There was some unexpected damage that we repaired on the meniscus and some other things. But I just got to tell you, it sucks that it took another year for it to tear, but it could have torn you jogging. Like, it was done so poorly. And so I remember sitting there in the post-op room, and it's like, well, part of me wants to go down and light this surgeon's practice on fire. But secondly, like, there's nothing to be done now. Like, the damage is done, and I wrote a letter to the doctor just saying that for whatever reason the surgery wasn't done right with the notes that I had from the doctor, and then I put it behind me, because there's no reason really relishing on that. And I didn't want to go back to Drake. I don't even know if I really wanted to play football at that point in my life. It was just, I kept falling back on I still have some left in the tank.
Did you ever take a step back and think, why does shit keep falling out of the sky on me here? Like, did you ever get down to that point where you're like, I don't understand. Like, what did I do to deserve this?
I remember countless times I just go on walks by myself at like night around campus, like, and just thinking to myself, what's the point of all this? But for whatever reason, I always had the thought that this is going to be a good story. Like, and even if it didn't end up like that, this is going to be a good story, whether I get cleared tomorrow, a year from now. I didn't think it was going to take as fucking long as it did.
I think you're Adrian fucking Peterson, for Christ's sakes here. What the hell are you talking about?
Everybody at some point in their life has asked that question. What's the point? The answer to that question, this is the point. It's to find out what the point is.
Yeah.
So when you ask that question, you're answering your own question. I know it's very philosophical and to think of it that way. And it's not until you get older do you realize, oh, that was the point.
Well, and so why it resonates so much when we connected with the Suffering podcast in general is the quote I wrote on my cup, Romans 5:3-4. It's not only so, but we glory in our sufferings because suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And in college, I ended up missing the rest of my freshman year, obviously. I missed the rest of my sophomore year as well. And I really relied on the hope piece where I was like, listen, I'm probably not going to be an All-American running back at this point. I'm 6 season-ending injuries in at this point in the last 7 years or 8 years or whatever it was. And my dreams had gone from I want to be an All-American back to I want to be an All-Conference back to how about, I get some play time to fuck me, I just want to see the field, at this point. And so, but in my mind, I was like, what about like my role on the team that I gave myself was I'm going to work as harder than anyone possible to give no one else a reason not to work hard. If I'm working hard, no one else has an excuse.
So I'm going to drive Bobby nuts and I'm going to quote another biblical verse, and that's James 18. All right. Faith without work is dead. All right.
Why is that going to drive me nuts?
Because you're just not a Christian.
I am a Christian.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
You want to know Jesus? Come on, let's go.
You're gonna meet Jesus in a couple of minutes. You keep talking that shit.
So
right in front of the kid.
But that's important. Like that faith that you had, that you are where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you were willing to work. All right. That's what that quote means. And that's a quote that's been resonating in my head for the past couple of weeks. And you're in here and you're actually living proof of it. So that's actually very encouraging to me that maybe it was preparation for you coming in.
Yeah, and there were so many things I went through in college where, like, I went through some pretty severe mental struggles in college. I suffered from panic attacks constantly, and all of this behind the scenes. Like, I'd just go up to my room. I would work out as hard as possible just so I could go to sleep faster, or just like go home and like I didn't want to be awake.
But that's how you survived since you were 7 years old.
Yeah, I got really good at, I think, managing my emotions in very hectic environments. And so that's how I coped with it, was just exhausting myself.
There had to be something else, though. You had a higher power the whole time, right?
I felt it. I don't know if I knew it, but I felt there was something. There was some reason.
Something to guide you.
Yeah, something to guide me. And it was really, if I had to place it on one thing, it would have been that promise. Like, I knew it wasn't about football at one point. It was about, I'm going to fulfill this promise, or I'm going to know I gave everything I had to it so I can live with myself.
Living with regret is probably one of the worst things that you ever did. And I live with regret for my football career. I've moved past it. Listen, but I know I had more in the tank. I just didn't want to do it no more. So you got your second ACL tear, okay, and you're committed to. How hard was it to commit to come back?
It wasn't as tough as the first time, because I knew it was ahead of me. Like, I knew the surgery, what it felt like. I knew all the physical
familiarity, experience.
I was like, all right, I know what's ahead. And so I did it. I mean, I worked my ass off, and I had amazing trainers. Our trainer, Drake Angie-Dahl, and our strength coaches were they invested everything into me, despite knowing I wasn't going to be, a star player, on the field. And just because they gave everything I had, or they had, because they saw me giving everything, I had too.
That's a turn on for a coach. It is. There's no other way to put it. What do you mean?
I don't know. It's kind of a weird analogy.
It is. It's well,
strange.
Maybe if you coach football that way, you'd understand. I don't want to get into that part, but it's a big deal when you see somebody that's just, they're just throwing
relentless.
It out. Relentless. That's a great word. You wrap yourself around that.
4 days after a scope on my knee, I went skydiving. That's how I got mobile. That's how I got motion, range of motion.
And now we know the chute opened, so
it did open. It did open.
Jesus is with you.
So you work your ass off. You get back, but all this stuff is going on behind the scenes. Is there any other coping mechanism besides you behind a closed door dealing with it yourself?
The Suffering Podcast welcomes our newest sponsor, Keto Revive. Ketamine infusions that are personalized, accessible, and holistic. Proven treatments for post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, neuropathic pain, and so much more. Key to Revive is physician operated with customized treatments tailored to you and an outstanding support system. Key to Revive offers first responder special discounts. So try something new. Proven treatments. Located in Wyckoff, New Jersey. To find out more, visit Key to Revive at keytorevive.com. Let's start healing today.
I think I found writing and journaling because I never wanted to talk to anyone about my issues. I was still very much in that kind of masculine,
Very guarded.
just repressed emotion state. And I was like, but I can talk to myself, as psychotic as that sounds.
Well, no, you're non-judgmental. It makes
Yeah,
perfect sense.
But when I started putting pen to paper and I just started writing my thoughts out, it put me in third person of my own situation, and I could evaluate it from a rational point of view, and it took the emotion out of it for me. And so I always knew. I remember I've never had a drink, but I should actually caveat that. I remember I cracked a beer in college after one of my injuries, and I was like, I took a sip, and I said, "What am I doing?" And I put it away because I've never had a drinking problem. I come from my uncle died of liver failure. My dad's an addict or was an addict. My grandfather was an addict. I've had suicide in my family. I knew what my family had dealt with, and so I always made a rule for myself that I was never gonna drink by myself. And so I never had that as a coping mechanism.
Believe me, it doesn't work when you drink with everybody
Yeah.
too.
But I had plenty of friends who I know guys who did. That's how they did it, or they did other drugs or prescriptions, like other things like that. Like there's guys in college who after surgeries had prescription drugs, and other guys asked for them after they stopped taking them. Like that was a thing.
Or when I was in college, it was asthma tabs. All right, so you took like 3 asthma tabs, and it expanded your lungs, so you had more energy, you had more gas.
Ephedrine.
Whatever it is. No, not a ephedrine.
It's in.
Not ephedrine.
If it's in asthma tabs like Primatine Mist, we used to take those.
So
And dude,
here's the problem with that. You're up until 3 a.m, at least pacing your room because you
shooting
can't
foul shots.
you can't come down off it. But so you make it back your senior year? Or no, now we're in your sophomore year.
So I ended up missing my sophomore year. I'm coming back, and I ended up getting cleared my spring going into my junior season. So we had like sophomore spring ball.
Mhm.
And then I'm doing exceptionally well. I'm in the best shape of my life. Things are going great. Spring ball went well. Got to just play against my teammates, do some inter squad scrimmages, things like that. And that was all good. And then we lead up to that summer. I was still going through some things, but I had I saw the light at the end of the tunnel that I was going to play. And then that was when I traveled to India, which is a whole other topic, because I was going through a rough mental bit, and you
just hey, listen, I'm going to India.
No. So I was going through just a rough mental bout and going through some things, and I had an offensive coordinator who's a former pastor who reached out to me, he was my offensive coordinator at Drake, and he said, "You know what? I think you have the heart for this. Would you be interested in going to India?" Because he had been involved with this group, Safe House, who rescued young girls from sex trafficking in India. And I think he saw that I was so in my own way that he needed to push me out of just getting out of the way of myself, because I was so just, focused in on, what I was going through, what struggles I had. And, I'm grateful for that.
So here's a weird statistic that I don't know how I know this. 3% of India is Christian. Do you know that? 3% of India is Christian.
There's a lot of stuff I don't know, but I didn't know that.
But there is 1 billion people. It's a lot of people, right? So that's why it makes sense. That's why it makes sense. Their names are like Thomas and Matthew, and that's how you know that they're Christian usually. But anyway, so did you ever step back on the field?
My junior year, after I came back from India, it was an incredible experience. I had a new outlook on life, and I'm ready. I'm going into fall camp. I'm actually now competing for a spot where I'm competing for a rotational role. It's funny. I had guys come up to me and like, "Holy shit, you're good at football." I was like, "I know that, but you guys just haven't really got to see it." And then 2 weeks before my first game, I was supposed to play fullback against the University of North Dakota. And we were doing a situational third down thing, just did practice inter squad situation, and my legs get taken out from under me on a zone play, and I end up separating my shoulder. Tore my labrum. I had a procedure done. It's called a reverse haggle procedure. I don't even know what it means, but I woke up from surgery, and the surgeon and my trainer at the time as well said, I've never seen this done to a football. Like the mechanism of injury, it just doesn't make sense why this happened to you, and it's really rare. And I was like, well, that's just my luck, I guess. But that went my junior year.
So now you're into your senior year.
Yeah.
You really haven't played any real
At all.
college football.
None. Yeah.
So did you fight your way back?
Yeah. So I came back my senior year. I was actually competing for the starting spot my senior year, having never played a down of college football in a game situation. And COVID cancels the season as I'm competing for the spot. And now
Is there a happy ending to this? Because I'm getting really depressed.
No, and so I remember looking up at the sky, and I was just like thinking, now I did everything right. I was as healthy as could be. I was more explosive.
You still got a 5th year?
Yeah, I was stronger than I ever was, yeah. But I was like, now that there's something that's not even in my control is taking this away from me. And I almost it was as depressing as it was, I almost kind of laughed. It's just like, what else are you going to throw?
Else,
like,
right.
What else,
If you came back for the 5th year, fire and brimstone would have came down, and you've been
Well, yeah, so then because of COVID, there was so much stuff up in the air, but we ended up getting 6 games of a spring season that we had. And a week before I was supposed to play, I actually separated a bone in my hand and in my right hand from a inter squad situation where I couldn't carry the ball. I was casted, splinted, and all this stuff. And I remember going into my coaches, and I'm like, I don't care what you put me on, what special teams, throw me on everything. And I'm not playing. Like, this is because at this point this was still in my senior year, but at this point I just needed to play. I didn't care if it was running the ball. I didn't care if you put me at tackle. I'm not getting put at tackle, but I played on every kickoff, punt, what have you. And I missed the first 3 games of this season. And funny enough, I had now played in as many college games as I had reconstruction surgeries in college. But I ended up, my first play was a punt, fair catch, no big deal. And everyone comes off, give me a high five for, just basically jogging down the field, put my arm out on a guy as left tackle on punt. And then there was a situation in the 3rd quarter where I had a couple big hits on kickoffs that I got to walk around with a sledgehammer with the next week as an award for. But the big play happened in the 3rd quarter. It was a punt. It was a really close game. I blocked my guy. Run down the field, and for whatever reason, the punt returner reverses fields, and I'm one-on-one in an open field tackle. I'm a running back. I haven't tackled anybody in years at this point. I've never been put in this position since high school. It's been a while, and I was just one-on-one, and I just threw my body in this guy, take the guy's legs out, and it wasn't some exceptional tackle that was gonna be some highlight reel or anything. It was a good tackle.
Solid play.
It was a solid play, and I'm on the opposite sideline. I turn back to our home sideline, and I just see our sideline go nuts. And people started running down on the field. I had a guy run out and jump up and celebrate with me at the 50-yard line, and everyone else is like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
They have no idea.
No, they have no idea. And I remember looking, and so much energy I wasted on things that didn't matter, because when I saw how happy everyone was for me and everything that went into it, I remember vividly, I prayed to have 100-yard games and, touchdowns, and I prayed to travel the country and play and do all these things. And in that moment, I realized that everything I prayed for didn't come true, but everything I should have been praying for did. And it was instead of the 100-yard, games, I had 100 relationships with my teammates. Guys were crying because they were so happy for me. And instead of traveling the country, I got to travel the world. I got to go to India. I went with my teammates. Like 80 of your best friends running around downtown Beijing was a fun time. And it was we got to do a bunch of diplomatic stuff, and it was
Could have been dangerous too.
no. Oh, we got briefed a lot on how to handle.
Did they make you
ourselves.
take your shoes off when you went in anywhere? Because
I think
that seems a popular thing in the Donaldson house.
there might have been a restaurant, but no, it's
You got to answer to my wife. That's what it's going to be.
but it was just that epiphany moment where I was like, this is why I did it, which I ended up being wrong, but it was in the moment, it was the happiest I've ever been. So
was that the end of your collegiate football career?
So I played 2 more games. Nothing too crazy to write home about. I had always kind of wanted to be a college football coach.
You now are looking at the sunset of your career.
Mhm.
You're now going to live, about to step into this unknown journey of living life without football. That's been your rock solid purpose, identity since you were 7 years old. Now, all of a sudden, now what? And that's going to do it for part 1 of The Suffering of Self-Worth with Conner Furu. There's too much information for us to do it in one complete episode, and we want to give you the best possible information on what this man does and has done and will do in the future. So stick with us. Part 2 is coming up, but don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast, and we'll see you next time.